I'm Keith Ghostland.
I'm Linda Quinlan.
I'm Ann Charles. Welcome to All Things LGBTQ. We are taping at in Montpelier, Vermont, which we recognize as unceded Indigenous land. It's Tuesday, December 10th, and before we get to our news, we want to register our outrage about the ongoing genocide in Gaza and the U.S. government's complicity in it. Keith?
How do you follow that up?
I know.
Because it only compounds. So, the trivia question. This was the first bill passed by the Vermont legislature that included the phrase sexual orientation. Bonus points if you know the year. I'm counting on Linda.
I wouldn't. But, you know, hey.
There's always a surprise.
Yes.
Events, Rainbow Umbrella, Women's Discussion Group,
Yeah.
and it's still a hybrid event, some in person. You can also
Yeah.
participate in Zoom. Book discussion group.
Yeah.
And you know I'm going to ask, what's the book?
Page Boy by Elliot Page.
Very good. Now, the book discussion group, is that in person or is that?
No, that's on Zoom.
That's
so
totally
anybody
on Zoom?
can join on Zoom, no matter where you are in the country.
So, but you go on the Facebook page to be able to get connected.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Because sometimes I've gotten that wrong, so.
Yeah.
So Rainbow Bridge and Barry continue to do phenomenal work. And I'm going to remind Linda that Wednesdays is the Queer Writers Group. You know, they've been missing her. And on Sunday...
As well they should.
Because there could be another book of poetry coming at some point.
Maybe, I hope so.
You can never tell.
It's out there.
Sunday, December 22nd, they're doing a community care day. And what this is you come in to Rainbow Bridge. You come into their offices. You say, this is what I need. And they try to match you up with organizations that provide those services if it's something they don't. So it's an integrated community response to individual and community need. Phenomenal. Fox Market.
Uh-huh.
They had so much fun doing the takeout for Thanksgiving.
And when are they opening again in Barrie? You said like the 7th of December?
December 7th.
Wow.
Foxy was opening on Main Street now that they've cleaned up and restored from the
Nice.
flooding. But Fox Market in East Montpelier, Thanksgiving takeout went so well, they're doing it again.
Christmas.
But you need the holidays. Could be the solstice. You can never tell.
Yeah.
But you need to get your order in by the 20th and then pick it up on the 24th.
Okay.
And we will have Zach put up the menu.
Hope
Okay.
it's vegetarian friendly.
They always
We
have
could do that.
They always have a vegetarian option.
Good.
So even if, they have a meat dish, they make sure that you're represented.
Good.
So Outright Vermont, just a reminder, they're doing Friday night group in Burlington. I didn't see a listing for Montpelier, though. So I'm wondering where that's sort of fallen off. The other thing I want to point out is that Outright Vermont has been trying to do virtual seminars for parents, care providers of trans and gender creative youth. And this is in anticipation of what is probably coming with the new administration. So please go on their website, Facebook page to see when they're happening again, or if there are transcripts available from previous presentations. And I know that they've been working with Vermont Legal Aid and the ACLU to ensure that people have all of the information they need, and that you walk away with, these are the things that I need to do to get ready, and keep that theme in mind. Out in the 802, oh my goodness, if it's Thursday, there's a pop-up happy hour someplace. Linda likes the Lincoln Inn on Church Street in Burlington because it's a speakeasy where you've got to knock on the door
And they
to
let
be
you
let
in. You
in.
can't find where it is.
And they're on Facebook and Meetup. and they're doing a whole series of potlucks. But you need to sign up for the meetup in order to get the information about where it's happening, you know,
Okay.
any of the additional details. Rutland County Pride, they're continuing to do their Friday queer workspaces. But when I went on their site, they've already booked their Pride event for 2025, and it's Saturday, June 21st.
Wow.
I think they're getting it in early because last year, I think we had 13 different Pride events statewide just in Vermont for the month of June. And Frog Meadow sent me a notice saying, please remind people we're still here. We're a year-round oasis for men. We have winter activities. Come join. And if you don't like skiing, there's numerous pictures of the hot tub.
And the swimming pool.
They
Probably
don't
not
have a
in the
swimming
winter.
pool, they have a pond.
Oh.
But they have a hot tub for winter.
Oh, good. Okay.
Linda, it's winter. Remember what we just walked in from?
Did we?
Yeah, and and with that, I'm handing it over to you.
All righty. Well then, on the top of the stories today is a sad story about the death of Nikki Giovanni. I have a picture of her, and she was the internationally recognized poet and provocateur. And she died on Monday in Blacksburg, Virginia. She was 81. Giovanni was a prolific writer, activist, educator, recipient of the Langston Hughes Medal and the NAACP Image Award, Emmy Award winner, Grammy Award nominee, and much more. She is survived by her wife, fellow writer and professor Virginia Ginny Fowler, and son Thomas Giovanni. We will forever feel blessed to have shared a legacy and love with our dear cousin, her relative Allison Reagan said on behalf of the family. Giovanni is one of the world's most famed African-American poets, gaining notoriety in the 1960s. As part of the Black Arts Movement, Giovanni's work touched on civil rights, the Black Power movement, hip-hop, and more. She wrote more than 24 best-selling poetry collections and children's books during her lifetime, including the 1968's Black Judgment and 1983's Those Who Ride in the Night Winds. Fowler once called her the definitive poet of the people. She will be missed. I read a lot of her in the 70s and 80s. As a young poet, I followed her, so sad passing. The Supreme Court on Monday rejected an appeal from Wisconsin parents who wanted to change the school district guidance for supporting transgender students. The justices, acting in a case from Eau Claire, left in place an appellate ruling dismissing the parents' lawsuit. 3 judges, Samuel Alito, Brett Kavanaugh, and Clarence Thomas, would have heard the case. That's one short of what is needed for full review by the Supreme Court. Parents with children in Eau Claire public schools argued in
Eau Claire.
Eau Claire, right?
Yeah, Eau Claire,
Claire.
Wisconsin.
I should know that. We live there.
That's how it dawned on me.
I know. That the policy violates constitutional protections for parental rights and religious freedom. 16 Republican-led states had urged the court to take up the parents' suit. Among other reasons, the court said no parent represented evidence that the policy affected them or their children. A unanimous 3-judge panel of the 7th U.S. District Court of Appeals included 2 judges Republican Donald Trump appointed during his first term.
It sounds like this community needs you to come back.
I know, but we were Madison.
Oh,
Didn't get out much into the suburbs.
And Ann did a clip on Amelia Perez last week, right?
Correct.
And Carla Sofia Gascon's performance in Amelia Perez has made her a global sensation. Now she's made history as the first out trans woman to be nominated for a lead actress in a film at the Golden Globes. Isn't that good?
Right.
In the film, Gascon plays the title character, a Mexican drug lord who comes out as transgender and transitions. The Spanish actress nomination sits in the musical or comedy category. There is a separate category for dramatic film. Besides Gascon's nomination, Amelia Perez received 9 other nominations, making it the first film with the most nominations this year. Gascon is also an Oscar frontrunner for her work in Amelia Perez. She, along with co-stars Selena Gomez, Adriana Paz, and Zoe Saldana, already won the Best Actress Award at the Cannes Film Festival. So, we were right on top of that one, Ann.
Mm-hmm.
And where was it, on Netflix?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see it on Netflix. It's really good. On Thursday, transgender activists, including prominent advocate Chelsea Manning, staged a sit-in at the United States Capitol to protest a new bathroom ban announced by House Speaker Mike Johnson at the urging of Congresswoman Nancy Mace. The ban, which appears to target congressional woman-elect Sarah McBride, the first transgender congresswoman in U.S. history, also applies to transgender visitors, staffers, and journalists who frequent Capitol Hill. The surprise protest, which caught Republican leaders off guard, sparked an inflammatory response from Mace, who stood outside a police facility with a bullhorn and referred to the protesters as tranny protesters, using the long-recognized slur against transgender individuals. And here is the picture of the demonstration.
And Raquel Willis was also arrested.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if they make Caitlyn Jenner use which bathroom.
Yeah.
Well, in Mar-a-Lago, she gets to choose whatever bathroom
I've heard that
she
rumor.
wants to go to. A city court judge in Syracuse, New York, is facing investigation and calls to resign after she refused to marry a lesbian couple. What's Syracuse like, Ian? Is that conservative area?
Apparently.
You, as the resident New York person.
Western New Yorker, not
Yeah.
upstate.
Felicia Pitts Davids is being investigated by the State Commission of Judicial Conduct for refusing to marry these 2 young women. So so she's in a lot of trouble for that. She said she didn't want to do it because of, what do you think?
Religion.
Yes.
I'm shocked.
Me too. Richard Grenell, the highest-ranking out gay official in the first Donald Trump administration, campaigned hard to be Secretary of State in the second term, but didn't make his first term, but didn't make the cut. Several Trump-supporting social media influencers posted their endorsement of Grendel for the position shortly after the election, and there was even a plan for a paid social media campaign, which didn't happen, and which Grenell has denied any knowledge of. As associate of Grenell, had approached conservative social media influencers, according to 2 people with knowledge of the situation, offering paid contracts of as much as 5 figures to post favorably about Grenell. It illustrates the lengths to which people close to Grenell want to ensure he gets this job. So,
We'll see.
yeah. Okay, I'll do one more story here, and then we'll move on to Ann. How's that sound?
Good.
Okay. Naiad star Annette Bening recently spoke in defense of transgender youth outside the Supreme Court. Her trans son as her inspiration to fight for the civil rights issue of our era. I have 4 beautiful children, and I'm allowed to brag about my children because they're mine. And my eldest is a remarkable trans man with extraordinary human being, she said outside the courtroom Wednesday. As a well-meaning parent, I didn't always know how to support my teenager, my vulnerable teenager, who was just trying to live his truth. But you know what? I learned, and so can you. So we'll leave on that note. Okay,
All
Ann,
right.
what you got?
Well-
I know you forgot your notes.
I know I don't have my headlines, so some paper shuffling will occur. I have some interesting stories from Asia. Starting with Kuwait, Wicked, the film Wicked, has been
I
banned
loved
in
it, I loved
Kuwait,
it.
reportedly due to lesbian and gay portrayals. There aren't any LGBTQ characters in it. There's one who's sort of a stereotype, implied gay, but he doesn't
It
come
must be
out.
the closest of the women's friendship that really annoyed them or something. I don't know. But
Well, on Wednesday, December 4th, Variety reported that screenings of the film had been removed from cinema listings in the Persian Gulf state ahead of its scheduled December 5th theatrical release. According to the outlet, local media in Kuwait speculated that the ban was due to the film's queer cast members, and Cynthia Erivo is bisexual, openly so. The film, based on the long-running Broadway musical, which in turn was based on author Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel, features out actors Cynthia Erivo and Jonathan Bailey in starring roles, as well as Bowen Yang and Marissa Bode in supporting roles, so they're all apparently openly gay. However, the Kuwait edition of the Arab Times reported that the decision to ban the film came amid reports that it includes a gay character. On their recent tour, both Erivo and co-star Ariana Grande, herself a vocal LGBTQ ally, have played up the film's queerness and appealed to LGBTQ audiences. In one interview, Grande suggested that her character, Golinda, might be a little in the closet. It's an interesting reading. Everyone is just so beautifully queer, she added, of the characters who populate the land of Oz in the film. Every day in the Emerald City is a pride parade. However, despite her take on the film, Wicked features exactly 0 explicit LGBTQ characters. Apparently, it was because of the lesbian and gay portrayals in the movie, Australian entertainment journalist Peter Ford said. Which I guess if you look for it, you might have seen it. I mean, we saw the show, the Broadway show,
I didn't see it in the Broadway show either, but
and then we saw it in the theater too. And
I like the theater version better, I have to say. I enjoyed the movie a lot.
the theater,
The theater,
the play,
the play.
yeah, as opposed to the cinematic rendering.
I liked it both, but I liked the play better.
3AW host Ross Stevenson noted that he took his 8-year-old daughter to see the film and didn't clock any LGBTQ content. While he described Kuwait as not the most conservative of the Gulf countries, Variety notes that the nation has become one of the strictest in the region when it comes to film censorship. The country banned director Greta Gerwig's Barbie in 2023, claiming that the film promoted ideas and beliefs that are alien to the Kuwaiti society and public order. As Them notes, the publication Them, the country also banned the 2023 horror film Talk to Me, citing non-binary and trans-masculine actor Zoe Tarakis' role in the film. So, now let's look at a picture of Hani Mahajaran and Mauni Mahajaran, who are 2 out trans candidates running for office in Nepal for the first time. These candidates they're not related, they just have the last name. They're both rallying for a role in parliament. Both Hani and Mauni, who are not related despite sharing the same surname, are in the running for local by-elections in the country. Nepal is hailed for having some of the most progressive LGBTQ rights in South Asia. There's not been an out LGBTQ member to hold public office since 2008. Honey, 44, and she's on the left in the picture, is hoping that her candidacy will inspire others in the queer community to participate openly in future elections. Now, this election occurred on December 1st. She was running for mayor of Kittapur, a municipality on the outskirts of Kathmandu, and I don't know what the results are. So I'll have to report on that next time. Despite legal advancements, Honey noted that those in the queer community in Nepal often face discrimination in many walks of life, including employment, healthcare, and educational settings. Mauni is running for a ward chair role in the same area. Both candidates are part of the People's Socialist Party Nepal. People's Socialist Party Nepal. Mauni, 29, is campaigning against LGBTQ discrimination, especially in the workplace and at school. She explained that she wants to create jobs for the community and implement LGBTQ-focused classes in school to raise awareness. So, that's good for them.
Yep.
Good news from Asia. Now let's go to Africa for less good news. I have two stories that aren't great, but one that is encouraging. Kenya is denying asylum to LGBTQ refugees, and this is particularly unfortunate because a lot of refugees from very homophobic East African nations are going there, trying to go there. The Kenyan government, however, is standing in their way. It's not a right as far as the government of Kenya is concerned, said the Refugee Commissioner, John Burugu, when questioned about the lag in processing LGBTQ asylum cases. He said the criteria for refugee status include persecution and genocide, but not what he called those letters, referring to the LGBTQ acronym. It is wrong. Please keep those skeletons in your own cupboard, he added. So that's nice. LGBTQ plus refugees most at risk from across East Africa are fleeing to Kenya and are finding themselves entirely stuck within the refugee processing structure. Many arrive at the notorious Kakuma refugee camp, which houses nearly 300,000 refugees from across East Africa. LGBTQ people are regularly subjected to harassment, beatings, and in some cases death from fellow refugees and homophobic locals. Multiple reports in Kenya have documented human rights violations against LGBTQ people in the camp. The United Nations Human Rights Commission says that 450 LGBTQ plus refugees have trekked to South Sudan in January alone. Of them, 28 were resettled in the country too, barring registration for asylum claims based on sexual orientation or gender identity. And South Sudan isn't a great place to be either. The representative who's sponsoring this legislation called LGBTQ identity a Western import, even though numerous tribes in pre-colonial Africa had instances of homosexuality, both in their rituals and social relationships. These days, gross indecency between males in Kenya is punishable, it's gross indecency, their words, by up to 14 years in prison, though the law is rarely, if ever, enforced. So now let me move on.
All right,
Linda's
we
getting
have about
nervous.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, very bleak story. I have a picture before you now of Chinaloba, 25, a model and activist, murdered by his boyfriend and dismembered. And so this happened between New Year's Eve and January 2nd in 2023. The boyfriend has just been sentenced. Witness testified that, well, there were gory details involved with this killing. The verdict, the judge declared evidence that Ohimabo, the the victim's lover, had left the decomposing body in the apartment. They bought a metal trunk. He bought a metal trunk, and his lover stuffed him in it and left it, and then it was just thrown out on the road, and a truck driver spotted it. So he's just been sentenced. The trial is ongoing, so we'll see what develops there. Can I go to a good story from Africa?
No.
Okay.
Okay, that was a short answer. Okay, I want to start by we have had our third person here in Vermont in less than 3 weeks who has died while camping outside, waiting for the motel program to open up again so that they could secure housing. We can do better. December is HIV/AIDS Awareness Month. Joe Biden made LGBTQ history by being the first president to display the names quilt on the lawn of the White House. Thank you. And he acknowledged where it came from, the significance of it, and Cleve, whose idea it was to start it in the first place. So I made the great mistake of listening to some of the Supreme Court argument from the Schimetti case. And this
What is wrong with you?
Foolish.
I think it's Ann's influence. Albeit, this is the case where the U.S. Department of Justice is challenging the Tennessee law that bans gender-affirming care for minors. Now, when the new administration comes in, who knows what's going to happen with this case, because they're going to have an entirely different interpretation from the Department of Justice, but the arguments have already been heard. And the opposition, those supporting the Tennessee ban, their argument was, this is all just new and we're not really sure, and there isn't scientific data to support this. And we need to know much more, and it's our responsibility to protect our youth. And then they went on to say that 85% of youth who have gender identity confusion outgrow it. And they were using, some of the European countries have started slowing down their process. And they were citing that, saying, oh, Europe has realized that they were wrong, that this is a social media, leftist, liberal, they're creating the confusion in our youth, and they're bullying us so that we're silent and we're not standing up for them. The difference between the European approach and what the Alliance Defending Freedom is trying to do here is the European approach is to say, we're putting this in the hands of our medical experts. You tell us what is best practice, not we're going to legislate that you can't do anything because we don't agree with it. So, but looking at that, let's talk about what might happen here in Vermont after Project 2025 and Agenda 47 gets put into place. Because we have some of the strongest protections in place. And one of the suggestions is that the same as New York did after Roe v. Wade was struck down, we may want to start stockpiling medications. We may want to look at having enough on hand that we are dispensing it. We have it available for, those who we see as meeting the criteria for care. Well, and a piece of that, and it's something that I had totally forgot, is there's a national tracking mechanism for medications. It's like controlled substances. The feds know exactly who's getting it, how much is going to what state are using more than others. there's a concern that both with abortion-related and gender affirmation medications, that the FDA, under the incoming regime, might use this same medication monitoring process to see who is getting treatment and where, and then they can backdoor into, oh, and it's Keith Ghostland who's receiving this medication.
Yeah.
And that would then tie it back to potentially a state of origin. So one of the proposals here in Vermont is strengthening our language so that that type of sharing information doesn't happen. And they're also looking at doing similar amendments to our existing statutes so that ID documents, think of New Americans, Vermont allows a non-citizen to get a driver's license, an ID, but when you go in to renew it, you have to say your country of origin. Once we collect that information, the feds get it. So they're looking at what is it that we can do so that we are not providing information that then could be used against the new Americans who are here in the state of Vermont, who our agricultural industry is totally dependent upon them. The other place that they're looking at is looking at what might be happening with funding. And in Agenda 47, a lot of the maneuvering is looking at how they can control funding and priority of funding, because some of the changes they want are going to take congressional approval. And I had mentioned before about the filibuster in the Senate. You need 60 votes to bring it onto the floor. They know they're not going to have that. Oh, let's see what we can do with funding. Our education system is going to be front and center because we have our equity initiative where we are looking at curriculums that fully acknowledge the worth of all of our citizens and acknowledge all of our history, which is exactly what the incoming administration wants to eliminate at all levels, including college level, getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the woke and the critical race theory. So
it seems like a lot of colleges are dropping them even when they don't know.
they're scared
Yeah,
because they're
they're
afraid.
just dropping it.
Well, there's already an indication. I mean, looking at Project 2025 and Agenda 47, they've already clearly mapped out this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. And this is who we're targeting. So they're doing the things now to ensure that they're not going to lose funding. I mean, one of the questions here in Vermont is, do we take the non-discrimination work that we've done seriously, and what are we going to do to compensate for federal money that may be getting pulled away because how we view who is a citizen and worthy of recognition and support is not what the incoming regime is looking for. Yeah. The other place that they're really looking at, or people are talking about, is custody issues, adoption. How do we ensure that we don't lose our kids? And also, one of the things, part of the conversation, and I guess I had missed it, is that you don't get parental leave unless you have a legal or biological relationship with the child.
Oh.
So so they're looking at, and actually it was interesting, and I might have thought of people that the wedding industry is saying they're getting a lot of queer elopees who are trying to get marriage before the incoming regime, because listening to the conversation with the Alliance Defending Freedom, we're in their crosshairs.
Oh, sure.
If you have any doubt that they're coming for us, they are.
Yeah.
And they're really looking at where we're vulnerable.
And they've been organizing this for 50 years, so.
Well, and they're coming after our youth first because that's always the area of greatest vulnerability. If you're talking to somebody saying, oh, we're just trying to protect our children, the emotional the emotional appeal outweighs the intellectual argument. So, and now that I've depressed you totally,
Well, I have more I can add.
well, and if you don't, I know somebody else who might.
I've got my Uganda story.
Exactly.
I'm hanging on to it.
Well, there was footage obtained in police in Palm Beach. Shows the arrest of a Florida sugar company executive's son who attacked his girlfriend because he was upset at being seated next to a gay couple at a swanky steakhouse earlier in the evening.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Alex Nicholas Fajul, 39, was initially arrested and charged with domestic battery by strangulation, tampering with or harassing a victim, robbery, and false imprisonment. He pleaded guilty to federal battery, criminal mischief, and theft on November 4th. The court withheld final adjudication on the felony battery charge. Well, that's why he did what he did. So
What did he do?
he beat up his girlfriend because he was
In
mad.
the restaurant or?
No, I
took
think
her
at home. At home, yeah.
Oh gosh.
Okay, I don't get the connection between I'm sitting next to a gay couple and I don't like it, so I'm going to beat you up when I get home?
Yeah, he was so upset. He was just.
Okay.
Okay. Florida representative, I have a picture of her, Michelle Rayner, will try to make history in 2026 as the first queer woman elected to the Florida Senate.
Oh, that would be great.
The Democrat, who just won an election to a third term representing St. Petersburg in the Florida House, announced she will run for an open Florida Senate seat when Democratic incumbent Darrell Rosen retires.
So it's state senate.
State
Yes.
Senate, yes. She feels the need to bring her voice to the upper chamber. But while she identifies as LGBTQ, her priority will be representing her community in the Florida Capitol.
Oh, I hope she wins.
Yeah.
I was on your wavelength. I was hoping she was going to the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
I know, because Marco Rubio's going
We need that.
And that's a special election, but that'll be next year. It won't be. Oh no, it will be in 26.
Will it?
That's right. Yes.
Well, you'll be surprised to know that Republicans in Congress have hijacked a bill authorizing national defense spending for the upcoming year by forcing a ban on any medical treatment for gender dysphoria that could result in sterilization. For those under 18, under the Military Health Insurance Plan, TRICARE, the provision could prevent military members from getting safe, effective transitional care for their transgender children. However, in a bipartisan compromise meeting, the aforementioned provision against gender-affirming care was revealed instead. This version awaits a vote from the House and Senate and will go to President Biden's desk, where he may veto or not veto it. If he passes it, this would be the first federal statute restricting the LGBT community affirmation of the importance of visibility, representative for all members of our community. So
And keep that funding.
So they put
thing-
a rider on there, I guess, huh?
Well, keep that funding thing in mind because one of the strategies is using what's called the Hyde Amendment, where you can't use Medicaid money for abortion-relating services.
Right.
They think the incoming administration is going to do the same for gender-affirming care, so if they don't get it in the bill, they've already got a plan.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they have a plan for everything. Moving on to New York City. Officials confirmed.
Ann thought you were passing it off to her.
Not quite yet. New York City officials have
She's
confirmed.
sneaky.
what other local traditions are reporting. There's been a Trump bump in the number of marriages performed around the country.
Oh, Keith was just talking about that.
The city doesn't track couples' gender or immigration status, so there is no data on who exactly is getting married, but anecdotal evidence suggests that many marriages are taking place out of fear marriage equality for same-sex couples could be imperiled in the second Trump administration.
Clarence is coming for us, yeah.
President elect Donald Trump has named Senator Marco Rubio
Speaking of Florida and Senate seats,
as his choice for Secretary of State, even though the two once traded barbs as political rivals.
oh yeah.
During the 2016 Republican presidential primary. While Rubio has primarily served as a leader for his home state of Florida, he has unwaveringly maintained anti-LGBTQ policy stances throughout his political career. Rubio has long opposed same-sex marriage, saying back in 2015 that the Supreme Court's decision legalizing marriage equality was an example of the government compelling people to sin. He has said it is the duty of Christians to oppose the ruling.
And I will say what I used to say, it's not a sin as long as you do it properly.
My last story, and then I'm going to pass it on to you. It was only 24 hours before the city of Prattville, Alabama, was set to host a Christmas parade that a local LGBTQ group was notified it would not be allowed to march in. Isn't that surprising?
St. Patrick's Day.
Prattville Pride, located in the city of about 40,000, has requested extra security measures for its float out of an abundance of caution after receiving harassment online. Instead of granting their request, however, Mayor Bill Gillespie Jr. announced Thursday morning that the group was banned from the parade altogether, citing serious safety concerns. With just one day before a parade on Friday, Prattville Pride's lawyer Julia Phillips prepared a federal discrimination lawsuit against the town, serving Gillespie as town's tree lighting ceremony that night. The next morning, U.S. District Judge Austin Hoffaker Jr. ruled that the city had violated the group's right to equal protection under the law. The judge determined that while some community members voiced vehement opposition to the group's participation, he ordered that at least 2 police officers escort the float during the parade. Notified of the victory just hours before the parade was set to take place, Prattville Pride finished their float and proudly marched through the town Friday night. This group said in a statement, "It is a powerful and extraordinary event." So, here we go.
I'm excluding you, but it's for your own protection.
Yeah. And so they
How often have we heard that?
they jumped right in with their float and their parade, and they paraded in Alabama, and that's a good thing.
All right. It is a good
Okay.
thing. Okay. Uganda, which we know is an awful place, they have a kill the gays bill. Refugees are trying to get out as much as they can. In any event, a Ugandan court awards $50,000 to men tortured after being arrested for alleged homosexuality. I mean, this is like a bright light. On November 22nd, they awarded more than $40,000 to 20 men
Wow.
that police tortured after their 2020 arrest for alleged homosexuality. The High Court of Uganda's Civil Division ruling notes that police and other state authorities arrested the men in a town in central Uganda, and they were allegedly tortured. The arrest took place shortly after the Ugandan government imposed a lockdown in response to the COVID pandemic. Based on the same suspicion of homosexuality, the applicants were arrested, taken to a police station, and charged with doing a negligent act likely to spread infection by disease, the ruling said.
That's harsh.
The alleged actions of torture included beating, hitting, burning, using a hot piece of firewood, undressing, tying, binding, conducting an anal examination, and inflicting other forms of physical, mental, and psychological violence.
How did the court get ahead of this?
I don't know. The ruling notes that the men were charged and sent to prison where they were, again, allegedly beaten, examined, harassed, and subject to discrimination. We know about the Kill the Gays bill.
Well, I hope they're using their money to get the hell out of there.
I know, and so anyway, this ruling occurred, and it's a significant victory for the LGBTQ community, activists said. Now,
Although their lives might be endangered when they're let go.
I mean, it's still
But
not
they-
good there, but a shining light.
Yeah.
But don't go to Kenya.
Oh, no, or I wouldn't recommend either place, really. But now I'd like to go to Europe with some interesting stories. Now I'd like to show you a picture of King Penguin Magnus.
Oh.
A precocious and sexually domineering king penguin, enlisted for a breeding initiative in an England zoo and thought to be a female, has turned out to be a boy. Penguin Maggie traveled from Denmark to Birdland Park and Gardens in Cotswolds and Gloucester, England in 2016. Her keepers had high hopes that she would produce an egg. When Maggie reached sexual maturity in 2020, she displayed flirtatious behavior with a male named Frank. Alas, the couple did not produce an egg. Same again in 2021 and again in 2022. Alistair Keane, Birdland's head keeper, told the Washington Post in 2023 they were seen mating quite regularly. The flirting, Keane said, involved various behaviors like making distinctive penguin noises and posturing. They do a low trumpeting call, which is basically them saying, "I'm free and I'm single, who's interested?" And whoever's interested then shouts back, said Keane. They'll even check out their partner's feet as they incubate their eggs on their feet.
I'm not going there, you can't make me.
Keane said staff were giddy for a chick when Frank sat with his tummy tucked over his penguin feet, a usual sign of warming an egg. But he was incubating a leaf, Keane said. The head keeper had his suspicions about Maggie's sex, and these rose as the penguin grew taller than his female peers. This penguin has looked very tall compared to everyone else, he said. She also displayed dominant characteristics in the bird's mating ritual, which female penguins don't do. Male penguins, this is in the weeds. Male penguins lack an extruding sex organ, which complicates sexing in avian animals. Insemination takes place when the opposite sex pair rub orifices together to transfer sperm produced by males from internal testes. Isn't this interesting? Maggie's rubdowns grew to include other boy birds besides Frank. She was also seen mating with another male called Spike. The mystery of Maggie's eggless encounters was finally solved when keepers conducted a DNA test on the bird's feathers in October. Turns out Maggie is a male. I wasn't 100% surprised when I found out, Keane said. In honor of the bird's far northern roots, we've renamed him with a fine Scandinavian name of Magnus. Is the bird formerly known as Maggie Gay? Could be. Cohabiting male penguins have famously incubated chicks together and mourn one another's passing just like humans. We've discussed this at length. Males are also known to display mating behaviors with other males, even if they father chicks with a female partner. We've told the breeding program, so I'm kind of hoping that gives them an excuse to give me another female, Keane said. So there's Magnus, originally from Denmark.
And you answered all my questions.
Yeah, so a thorough coverage.
There you are.
I'd like to show you a clip now of a film from Italy called Milanova. Matteo and Riccardo are a couple, and they are about to celebrate their 6 months of their relationship. But the romantic time is interrupted by news. Matteo discovers he has become HIV positive. And since this is World AIDS Day was December 1st, I'd also like to recommend my recent interview with Amy Hoffman when she talked about her memoir, Hospital Time. In any event, let's look at the clip of Milanova.
pensavo prima quando ero in aereo. Oggi sono 6 mesi.
Guarda, canale. Guarda. Matteo. Partiremo con una terapia basata sul single tablet regimen. Matteo?
Da quanto sono sieropositivo?
Quando è morto io sono venuto ad abitare qua, in questa casa, da solo.
Lui ci sta riempiendo la testa con le sue storie per tenerci qui, ma che cosa vuoi? Riccardo! No, che calmati!
Anch'io ho deciso. Non eri da solo.
Vuoi restare qua, senza fare niente? Vuoi diventare come tuo zio?
Se sono positivo, la colpa non è tua.
Larga! Larga, Matteo!
Quando gliel'ho detto pensavo che sarebbe scappato. E invece è rimasto. Stiamo bene insieme.
E tutti avevano lo stesso pensiero, la stessa paura. Cosa ne sarà di me?
Okay, where's it playing again?
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
Now, bad news from Russia. Gay
Is there
club.
good news from Russia?
I know.
Is there ever good news for
Well, I
Russia?
have good news from Poland, though.
All right.
We've had a little Uganda news. Gay clubgoers labeled hooligans after Moscow raids. 4 bars
Right.
were raided, including people were arrested, including a club owner who is a gay travel executive, and he was organizing a trip of gay people to Egypt. So Putin is.
I'm surprised they
discouraging-
have gay bars in Russia. I mean,
Well, yeah,
you know?
it's a
We,
club.
I was gonna say, we had gay bars before it was legal here, so,
Yeah. And they were raided.
exactly.
So, Martin Luther King said the arc of history bends toward justice. Let's hear what's going on in Poland. Poland looks like it's set to ban anti-LGBTQ hate speech. In regulations in the country, the Polish government has approved a plan to include sexual orientation, gender, age, and disability in the country's hate crime laws. Laws in the country already make public insult based on national, ethnic, racial, or religious affiliation illegal and carry a jail term up to 3 years. And now LGBTQ hate speech is going to be included. This is Prime Minister Donald Tusk approved the draft legislation, which will now move to Parliament, where it's likely to pass.
Good.
What do you know about that?
I might be able to visit Poland yet.
Let's take a look at. We almost went to Poland a couple
I
of
know.
times. Alex Consani becomes the first trans woman to win the Model of the Year. Here she is, she's 21. She's American by birth, but she's won 2024 Medal of the Year at the British Fashion Council's Fashion Awards, becoming the first transgender woman to do so. Good for her.
Yeah.
Now, Peter Tatchell, let's look at a picture of him. In the picture, he's in Qatar, and I showed it before when he was protesting the World Cup at Qatar. But now, the Qatari Emir is visiting the UK, and Peter Tatchell is on hand to stage a peaceful protest of the state visit to Britain, citing the Gulf nations' appalling abuse of the human rights of women, LGBTQ people, and migrant workers. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, and King Charles should not reward the Emir with the honor of a state visit, while his regime continues to victimize women, LGBTQ people, and migrant workers. Fading the Emir is collusion with tyranny, he said, and good for him, he is so right. The Qatar government is a police state dictatorship. It's guilty of systematic homophobia, sexism, and suppression of workers' rights and basic freedoms like free speech and the right to protest. This state visit sends the wrong message that the UK prioritizes trade and investment over human rights, Tatchell added. The UK should be challenging Qatar's human rights record and seeking the release of political prisoners, not rewarding its ruler with royal pageantry
Yes.
and red carpets. Now, in my final story,
It's all about the oligarchy.
Romania's first openly gay candidate runs for parliament. Now, Romania is not a great place, probably, but let's look at Florin Bușaniu, who is running for parliament. He's the first openly gay candidate to run for office in Romania. He's a longstanding activist for the LGBTQ community, the first openly gay politician to run for parliament in Romania, a largely conservative, Orthodox Christian country where the LGBTQ community faces
Well, good, we should move on. We have to do Keith's trivia.
All right.
So, if you remember, I mentioned that December is HIV/AIDS Awareness Month.
Right.
That might give a hint that the first use of the term sexual orientation in a Vermont statute was in H. 239, which was introduced by Representative Mick Glitman of Burlington, and it was a bill to prohibit discrimination on the basis of HTLV3 antibody status or AIDS.
1982.
1987. And Vermont did it preceding the Americans with Disabilities Act. We were, again, in the forefront.
Good for us.
And HTLV3, a human T lymphotropic virus type 3, is what's now called HIV. So,
All right.
with that,
Now, more than ever, remember to resist.